Job's story is one of unimaginable suffering. He loses his family, his wealth, and his health. In the depths of his despair, he cries out to God, questioning why he has been subjected to such pain. His lament is raw, honest, and deeply human. Job's cry resonates with all who have experienced the crushing weight of suffering, the feeling of being abandoned by God. We see in Job a reflection of our own struggles. When tragedy strikes, it's natural to question, to seek answers in the silence. Job's plea for understanding is a testament to the enduring power of faith, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. He refuses to curse God, yet he also refuses to remain silent. Job's story reminds us that it's okay to grieve, to question, to cry out in anger and frustration. God can handle our doubts and our pain. In fact, it's in those moments of vulnerability that we often draw closer to Him. Like Job, we may never fully understand the reasons behind our suffering, but we can find solace in knowing that we are not alone in our pain. God is with us even in the darkest of times, and He will see us through. Job's faith is not passive acceptance, it's a passionate struggle. He dares to question God, to demand answers. This wrestling with the divine demonstrates the depth of his faith. Job believes that God is big enough to handle his anger, his doubts, and his pain. Many shy away from questioning God, fearing it shows a lack of faith. However, Job's story teaches us that true faith can withstand doubt. It's in the wrestling, the questioning, that our faith is refined and strengthened. Job's boldness in confronting God should inspire us to bring our own questions and doubts before Him. God welcomes honest dialogue. He doesn't require us to have all the answers or to pretend that we don't struggle. This wrestling with God is not disrespectful. It's a testament to the deep intimacy we are invited to have with Him. It's in the struggle that we come to know God more fully, to experience His love and grace in a deeper way. Job's cries for answers seem to go unanswered. God remains silent, and Job is left to grapple with the mystery of his suffering. This silence can be the hardest part of faith, the feeling that God is distant or indifferent to our pain. In the silence, doubt can creep in, whispering that our prayers are futile, that God doesn't care. But it's in these moments of perceived abandonment that our faith is truly tested and refined. Modern author and pastor Tim Keller writes, God will often take us into a wilderness experience, not to punish us, but to refine us. The silence of heaven, though difficult, can be a time of profound spiritual growth. It forces us to confront our own limitations, to acknowledge our dependence on God. Like Job, we may not always receive the answers we seek, but we can trust that God is present in the silence, working all things together for our good, even when we can't see it. Even in his darkest moments, Job clings to hope. He remembers God's faithfulness in the past and finds solace in the belief that his Redeemer lives. These glimmers of hope sustain him through his trials and give him the strength to endure. Suffering has a way of stripping away the superficial and revealing what truly matters. In the midst of pain, we often discover an inner strength we never knew we possessed. We learn to appreciate the simple things, the love of family and friends, the beauty of nature, the gift of each new day. As C.S. Lewis, who endured his own share of suffering, wrote, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Suffering can be a wake-up call, a catalyst for spiritual growth, a reminder of our need for God. Job's story reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope remains. God is always with us, offering comfort and strength. We are never truly alone. Section 5. Echoes of our own, modern voices, timeless struggles. Job's story, though ancient, speaks to the human condition across time. His struggles with doubt, pain, and the silence of God resonate deeply with modern readers. Countless contemporary authors and thinkers have explored similar themes, drawing inspiration from Job's unwavering faith. In his book, The Problem of Pain, C.S. Lewis grapples with the question of suffering, offering insights into the nature of God and the purpose of pain. He argues that suffering, though difficult, can be a means of spiritual growth, a way for God to draw us closer to Himself. Similarly, Philip Yancey, in his book Where is God When It Hurts, explores the complex relationship between faith and suffering. He shares stories of individuals who have found meaning and purpose in their pain, offering hope and encouragement to those who are hurting. These modern voices, echoing the ancient cries of Job, remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. The questions Job raised centuries ago are still relevant today, offering comfort and guidance as we navigate the complexities of faith and suffering in the 21st century. Section 6, The Crucible of Pain, How Suffering Shapes the Soul. Job's suffering, though extreme, illustrates a universal truth. Pain is an inevitable part of the human experience. It tests our limits, reveals our vulnerabilities, and forces us to confront the deepest questions of life and faith. However, suffering is not meant to break us. It can be a crucible in which our faith is refined, our character strengthened, and our compassion deepened. As the saying goes, the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. Through suffering, we develop empathy, the ability to understand and share the pain of others. We learn to rely on God more fully, to find strength in His presence. We discover hidden reserves of resilience and courage we never knew we possessed. As the Apostle Paul wrote, we also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. Suffering, though difficult, can be a catalyst for growth, leading us to a deeper understanding of ourselves, our faith, and the nature of God. Section 7, Beyond Human Understanding, Accepting the Mystery of God's Plan. In the end, God never fully explains to Job why he had to suffer. The mystery remains, a testament to the limits of human understanding when it comes to the ways of God. Job's story teaches us that sometimes we have to accept that we won't get all the answers. Faith requires trust, a willingness to believe even when we don't understand. It means surrendering our need for control and accepting that God's ways are higher than our ways. This doesn't mean that our questions are unimportant or that God doesn't care. It simply means that some things are beyond our finite understanding. As Isaiah 55 verses 8 to 9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Job's story encourages us to embrace the mystery of faith, to trust in God's goodness and sovereignty, even when we can't see the whole picture. And it's in the letting go, the surrendering of our need to know, that we often find true peace and freedom. Section 8, The Gift of Perspective, Seeing Trials Through the Lens of Faith. Job's story challenges us to shift our perspective, to view our trials through the lens of faith. When we focus solely on our circumstances, it's easy to become overwhelmed by despair. However, when we view our lives through the lens of eternity, our perspective changes. The Apostle Paul, who endured immense suffering for his faith, wrote, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." 2 Corinthians 4 verse 17. Paul understood that this life is temporary, but our souls are eternal. This doesn't minimize the reality of suffering or suggest that we should simply ignore our pain. It simply means that we don't allow our trials to define us. We remember that God is bigger than our circumstances, and He has a plan for our lives that extends far beyond our current pain. Job's story encourages us to keep the bigger picture in mind, to trust that God is working all things together for our good, even when we can't see it. It's in the midst of our trials that we often discover our true strength, our deepest faith, and our greatest capacity for love. Section 9, Finding Strength in Vulnerability, Embracing Our Brokenness Before God. Job's willingness to pour out his heart to God, to express his anger, doubt, and despair is a testament to the power of vulnerability. In our culture, vulnerability is often seen as weakness. However, in the context of faith, it's a source of strength. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable before God, we acknowledge our need for Him. We stop pretending that we have it all together and allow Him to meet us in our brokenness. It's in those moments of raw honesty that we experience the depths of His love and grace. Brené Brown, a researcher and author who has extensively studied vulnerability, writes, "Vulnerability is not weakness, it's our greatest measure of courage. It takes courage to be honest with ourselves and with God about our struggles, but it's in the vulnerability that we find healing, wholeness, and a deeper connection with our Creator." Job's story teaches us that it's okay to not be okay. God is big enough to handle our emotions, our doubts, and our pain. In fact, it's in our brokenness that we often experience His presence most profoundly. Section 10. A faith forged in fire, emerging from the crucible stronger. Job's story doesn't end with a neat and tidy answer to the problem of suffering. However, it does offer a powerful message of hope and resilience. Through his trials, Job's faith is refined, his character strengthened, and his relationship with God deepened. Job emerges from the crucible of suffering a changed man, not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. He learns that true faith is not the absence of doubt, but the ability to trust God even when we don't understand. Job's story is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the transformative power of faith. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope remains. God is always with us, offering comfort, strength, and the promise of a future filled with hope. As we face our own trials, may we remember Job's example of perseverance, vulnerability, and unwavering faith. May we cling to the hope that God is working all things together for our good, and may we emerge from the crucible of suffering stronger, wiser, and more deeply rooted in His love.